All right, so here is one of those deals. Why do you just look down? There's a lot to say today. And I've written at least 2 sermons. And probably won't talk about either one of them. Which is either a really, really good thing, or means we're going all out for lunch later. No, it'll be fine. It's not that long. This is the 12th talk that we started at the very, very beginning of the summer on Memorial Day weekend. Okay? So, and over that time, I've given, I guess, 4 talks, and other people have given 7, 8. And then there's one more. And Melissa's going to be giving that next weekend. That sort of winds everything up. Today is sort of the pastoral time of winding the summertime up. Okay, so ultimately that's an okay title, and we're going to use it, but it's probably a lot more than that. There's this verse in Revelation chapter 21, verse 5, and God is speaking, and God says, check it out, I am making everything new. Everything. And it was at this time when God was speaking about just a whole renovation of the heart and the world and a transformation of everyone into an opportunity to follow His Son. Check it out, making all things new. It's a declaration. Hang on to that. That you need to hang on to. Now I want to talk about this guy named Paul. Paul was a pastor, early church, probably the same age as Jesus. His letters came out maybe 20 years after Jesus died. But in the very, very early church, like right after Jesus died, here was the biggest controversy that was going on. Do people who are not Jewish have to become Jewish in order to believe in Jesus? It's a logical thing at that point. Do people who are not Jewish have to become Jewish in order to believe in Jesus? And in particular, it had to do with, do men need to be circumcised in order to become followers of Jesus? And Paul finally said, you know what, no way. God's realm is open to everyone. You don't have to be Jewish. You can be of any way, shape, or form to be a follower of Jesus, or even ask questions about who He is. And that's vital. Because later on, Paul talks about roadblocks. And if you've been on the Beltline, or if you've been on 9094, or if you've gone down, you see it's like bad, right? St. Paul says, anything that we do that puts up a roadblock between Jesus and them cannot exist any longer. It needs to be taken down. So how do we do it? That's a really good question. It's probably a lot easier then than it is now. Because they had like very little history then as a church, right? Think about the history that we have as a church. As a Lutheran church, as a just group of people that have been hanging out. So, right, I've been here for 11 years. Started my 12th year August 1st. Love it. Wouldn't change anything. But I'll tell you what, if I look back, yeah, right, if I look back, if anybody looks back over those 11 years, if you've been here, we have been through a lot of change. I didn't even want to write it down, because some of those changes are really, really, really small, and you would not notice any of it. Some of them are kind of big. And so we're sort of making a small change again, right? Going to 10 o'clock. Why? To be hospitable to people in our neighborhood, potentially. Is it gonna bring more people to Christ if we move to 10 o'clock for worship? I have no clue. Almost immeasurable. I'm not really worried about it. If it brings one more person to Christ, we have done our job. But there is a way bigger job that we have. And that's what these other talks during the summer have been about. And that's how I want to shore things up. When we talk about being disciples or following Jesus, actually there was this, as with this, said it last week, and it was in this book that we're reading. It said, Jesus did not ask us to believe in him. Jesus asked us to build our lives around him. Vastly different things. To build our lives around him. How do we do it? Simple, easy stuff. Worship. Don't go to church. I've said, I rarely say this here. I'm going to say it here because it shocks everybody. Quit going to church and start going to worship. If you come to have your name checked off the roster and make sure that you're here for the day and done your thing, you know, that's between you and God, but I would love it if everybody were here to worship. Because when we worship together, that Spirit moves in ways that it's amazing. Even as we were singing like some of those first two songs, you start seeing it happen. And it's just with people moving. It's like exquisite. Mike talked about study. And study is a really scary thing. Bible study is a scary thing. Because we're convinced in our heads that everybody knows more than I do. I think that also. Study on your own. You know, even if it means just reading that devotional I sent out every day. That's study. Whether you know it or not, that's study. There's scripture in there, and there's a thought in there, and it might make you think during the day. I got one email back already today about the one I sent out this morning, and it said, "You missed the point." I know who sent it. Doesn't surprise me. And he's from Indiana, so we're not even gonna. And it's not my father-in-law, so it has no relation to me, but it's from a gentleman in Indiana, so we don't have to worry about meeting him. But that's a great way to study. There's opportunities here to study. There's opportunities in other churches. If you go to another church and you want to study, go. If there's online places, do it. It's great. Here's the toughie. This is pray. I'm no good at it, personally. It's one of the hardest things in the world for me to sit down and concentrate. Because my mind gets jumbled. And then I think I have to say certain words to communicate to God. And I know better. And you know better. But prayer is really important. So figure out what prayer means to you. If prayer is walking in the Arboretum and looking at trees and having thoughts, sounds pretty good to me. Right? If prayer is walking around the block with your loved one or anybody or by yourself, and you allow other people to come into your mind, you're praying. That's what's going on. Fellowship. Get together. Fellowship. All right, so here's some very cool ones that we've been doing. We got together and cleaned the church. That was a blast. That was super cool. We got dirty cleaning the church, and we had fun just getting to know each other and doing that. We worked at the garage sale. Fabulous. Sweaty, rainy, icky, cold, but we did it together, and so it was good. Potluck outside, that big dinner that we had outside, inviting other people and everything, or the block party. Cold, right? But fun. It was fun. It's fellowshipping. That's doing that stuff together. So I'd encourage you to find a time to fellowship, be it potluck or quilting or coming on a Wednesday night to even listen or hang out with stuff as we're getting ready for worship on a Sunday. Whatever that is. And if it's not with people here, I don't care. We have to find other people to fellowship with. It's very, very important, because if we're left alone, things get dangerous. There's one subject that Jesus talked about more than any other one. A third of the time. Talk about money. A third of the time he talked about money. And he talked about it because money takes over our lives. We start judging everything that we can or can't do by what we perceive we have monetarily. In the very first talk on Memorial Day weekend, Ron said something to the effect of, look at your calendar, look at your checkbook, or now your spreadsheet online, and you will see where your heart is. That's it. Pretty straight up. So I showed the kids that letter of call from like 11 years ago. I mean, there's even a lot of people here that weren't here, and so the import of that is what it asks me to do. And there are, like I shared with them, and I know that you were hearing, these things I take exceedingly seriously. But when I was called, I wasn't called to Zion Lutheran Church only. I was called to Zion Lutheran Church and the Schenkhaven neighborhood. That was discussed. It's not written on there. Nobody can prove that. But if we go back and talk to the people that we were at that point, that was the key. To be about this house that was on some shaky stuff and the neighborhood. If you grew up Catholic, this is the term parish, that a priest is in charge of a parish, which is more than just the members. And here we call it a community. So it's not just members, but it's everybody around. It's why when some people who I know from Wilson's have passed away and they ask if I can do a funeral, absolutely. Is there any question about it? Or if the couple down the street here ask if we can have a wedding or something else here, absolutely. Why? Because it's at least pastoral. to the community. And I know I don't have to defend myself or any other actions that council has taken, but when I thought about things that might be stopping people from entering here, first of all, there are perceived things about churches that are not true. And they're not there. They're all over the place. And it's exceedingly hard to get around them. And the only way that you can is by living with people. And the only way to live with people is to be together and engage. And I knew that a piece of that was starting a little bit later. I don't know if it's going to happen. I have no clue. No guarantees. But I believe God when God says, I'm making all things new. I don't know what it looks like, but I believe God is making all things new. Maybe just changing that time can do it. Maybe adding a Christian meditation group can do that. Maybe just hearing this today can change our hearts in a way that allows us to be open to the Spirit and just share. Not asking anybody to go and knock on doors. Paul didn't do that. Paul went and hung out in parking lots, and I suppose if there were bars, he would hung out in bars. We know that he probably set up shop and made leather goods or tents, and people would come to him, and then he would talk about them. Change and transformation of the heart doesn't even mean bringing more people to worship or adding more money to the coffers or making us look good on some statistical chart. Transformation of the heart means exactly that. In some way, God has made something new in you to use you and the Spirit to make something new in somebody else. We've been through a lot of change. The biggest change that I believe, that I've seen, and I have witnessed you be part of, is that y'all are like strong like redwoods. It has nothing to do with size, even though redwoods are really big. But you're strong. And we've talked about being a prayerful community, and you are. And we talk about being centered on Scripture, the table, and the baptismal font, or the bath. And we are. I don't know what else we can do except reach out in love and continue to be strong. No matter what kind of roadblocks come up, and we try to knock them out. God says in Revelation 21, verse 5,